We are live.
All right.
Hmm.
So everybody, welcome to the Lily Pad conversation. I'm not sure if it's streaming on my channel yet. I'm trying to figure this out.
Okay.
Okay, it says live.
Well,
Oh, now it says live.
okay. Well, then let's do it. We've already got 2 viewers, so everything's good to go. So yeah, today we're going to be talking about what? What's going on today?
So yeah, on your last video, you talked about this things that somebody brought up called the China experience.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe elaborate a little bit. What is that?
Right. So the China experience, it's a weird thing in that, like, I feel like there are a lot of China YouTubers and like China bloggers and China writers, authors. They talk about like my China experience, or just like this is the China experience. And when I was in that live stream, I was just thinking that I don't like that. It's kind of gatekeeping, and it feels weird because everyone has such a different experience in this country, and I felt like that should be addressed. So yeah, I guess that's what we're talking about today, is like all the different kind of aspects of what makes up the China experience.
Which is different for everybody. Do you think that some YouTubers out there, like you said, like some of them put it out there kind of like, this is the experience, this is it.
Yeah, for sure. There was a really good video by someone in one of the YouTuber groups that he kind of broke down these different aspects of living in China. And so it's things like, how well do you know the language? What region of China do you live in? Because that's going to affect like how much money you make. It'll affect the attitudes of people. The weather will affect your experience. There's so many little things. And I feel like someone who just says, this is what you get in China, it's an uncomfortable thing to me. And I lost my train of thought. I was going somewhere. We were going somewhere, but I lost it.
Yeah, especially if it really depends like how long you've been there. I guess every experience is going to be different. And some people have their opinions about it, like, oh, well, you haven't experienced it unless you've done this, like you've traveled around the whole country, you've learned the language and all this. But not everybody has that opportunity, and maybe they're there for different reasons, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So like when you were in China, what was your sort of experience in terms of like, were you there to work? Where were you? How long were you there? That kind of thing.
Yeah, so I went there and got my TEFL certificate. So I got hooked up with a training center there, got my certificate, and then started training right away, and met my wife. And yeah, so all I can say is my first impressions about going there was like, I didn't really know much before arriving there, so I was very easily to be taken advantage of, I would say.
Right.
Unless, but in this case, it didn't really happen because I knew someone there, like my wife, and she helped me out, so stuff like that.
Right.
I know a story. I could tell a story, but I'm just gonna probably not tell too much detail. But I've had. I know somebody who's gone there, a friend of mine who's gone there, and knowing nothing about the country at all, like not even talking to me about it before going, just saying, hey, I'm coming to China all of a sudden. Anyways, they landed in Tianjin and pretty much taken advantage of because they didn't really know how the work culture was or anything like that, right? So, I mean, people like that can leave with maybe negative experience, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think we all, like, I've kind of said this from the beginning, like, if you've been to China and you have never been scammed, then you've never been to China. And I think I mentioned that in my previous live stream about things that make me unhappy. It is easy to get scammed if you don't do your research. And like I know a couple of people, one who was an au pair, like essentially like a babysitter
Oh yeah.
in Beijing, and she got really taken advantage of, and she was treated really badly, and the agency kept like giving her like little fines for this or that, and like she was told she would work like this much, and then she actually worked this much, and then like and this happens in teaching jobs and stuff like that. And yeah, it causes people to leave China and tell really horrible stories. Whereas, someone like me, I have had that experience, but it was luckily not my first impression of China. Yeah.
Or you've learned from it, right?
Uh-huh.
Learn to
Certainly.
adapt.
Yeah, certainly. So wait, where were you in China?
Beijing.
Oh, you were in Beijing. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So did you do a lot of traveling like throughout China?
Yeah. So I did live there for 3 years, and I've been in and out ever since. But so altogether, I've been like to Yunnan, I've been around Shanghai, Suzhou,
Right.
Tianjin, of course, and then a few other places.
Right. So
Yeah,
like
stuff
what?
like that.
Well, yeah, of course. Yeah, Xi'an's a big one for sure. So what was your experience around like all these other cities? Like,
Yeah. Well, I would say a lot of you'd feel very comfortable going to like the bigger cities because it all has pretty much the same. Um, I guess it's easy because there's a lot of English signs and stuff like that. It's easy to get around the subway systems and stuff like that. So for a foreigner, it's a lot easier to adapt and to get yourself around places.
mhm.
Like I noticed, for instance, in Beijing, the city has like built on a grid system, just like the American system, right? So I could figure that out right away, where to go. I would never get lost. Also, but it was my first time being in a subway, so that's where actually I got lost because like I had no
Okay.
idea what I was doing. I'm a Canadian. I've never been in a subway in my life.
Sure.
Yeah, but otherwise, if I'm walking, I'm fine. If I'm outdoors, no problem. But yeah, it's for a Canadian. I mean, going into the big city, it's quite exciting. And like every other city I went to, it was just an adventure. It was just
Right.
amazing architecture. All the food, like just it's fun. It's just experiencing all the different kinds of food and stuff like that.
Yeah, and I think that's an interesting point that you brought up. Like, I'm a Canadian, so I think also it
Exactly.
depends on where are you from. Like, that's going to change your entire perception of China. Like, don't you think? Yeah.
Yeah, like you're from Texas, right?
Yes. Sorry, I'm just getting over a little bronchitis.
Well, it's like culturally, it's pretty similar to where I'm from, like Alberta. It's like a cowboy state, like it's got cowboy.
Oh, really?
Province,
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
So we're all about like beef and cowboys and stuff like that.
Yeah, and like the country
Pickup
life and the pickup trucks and yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Not my thing.
I could never adapt to it here, so
Oh well. Are you still living in Alberta now?
yeah.
Okay. All right. How are you feeling?
Surviving.
Surviving. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
But anyway,
Okay.
oh, did you want to say something?
no. I was just thinking like I have so many things to talk about, but I was like I don't want to take over like the show. So I'm trying to.
That's fine. If you want to jump in, I was just gonna move on to like positives and negatives.
Mm,
So like that's a big thing that can really, you can paint this certain image of a country if you've been there. I would say in such a short time, and if you have those bad experiences, maybe teaching or something like that, and then. Well, I could talk about certain YouTubers who had a bad experience and left, and now that's all they talk about.
right.
And people like this try to say like they're the experts.
Mm, right. Yeah. So wait, hold on. There's a thing. So you need to turn down your. So I don't know what's going on. Both of us have.
Echo.
Both of us have headphones on.
Mm-hmm.
There shouldn't be any echo. I don't know what's going on there.
I wonder if I close this.
So,
Is it
yeah,
going?
I mean,
Yeah,
I don't know. Well, we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. So yeah, none of this is really unique to China. Any place in the world has its own multifaceted experience of this conversation. We'll fall into the "you can't understand Chinese China if you're not Chinese" trope. No, it won't. That I don't feel like that's where the conversation is going.
No, I would like to make a point though. Like
Yeah.
in 2019, before the pandemic, I was in Italy,
Uh-huh.
and so doing a family trip throughout Italy, and just fell in love with the landscape and all that stuff. I was like, oh man, I can imagine myself moving here. But that's like a thing when you're traveling, right? So we had our Italy experience.
Mm-hmm.
It seems like you get through this romantic period where it's like, oh, I love this place. It seems like a great place to live, but you really don't know what goes on behind. You don't know what it's like to work, or what the people are like and stuff like that.
Yes.
So that gives you another perspective too. Like if you have your own bubble, or you're just touring through, you have a totally different experience than from someone living there. Like for yourself, you lived there how long in China?
10 years. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's much different than mine, where it's been 3 years and then in and out every year or so.
Right. And I've also lived in 3 different cities in 3 different parts of China. I lived in the northwest in Lanzhou, and then I lived up in the kind of the border of the northeast in Tianjin, and then now I live in the southwest, which is Chengdu. And yeah, it's like being in 3 different countries. Yeah, it's because up in Lanzhou you see so many more like ethnic minorities. You see like a lot more of like Hui people, like Uyghurs. Also, you see a lot of like, yeah, I mean those are the 2 minorities. You see a lot of people from Xinjiang and Ningxia and Sichuan people. Whereas like in Tianjin, I was just pretty much seeing Han people all the time. A lot of Koreans as well. And then in Chengdu, you see a lot of Tibetans. You see a ton of Tibetans, depending on what part of the city you're in. So yeah, it's super diverse in terms of like people groups, because that'll affect language, it'll affect attitudes, it'll affect a lot of things. So yeah, that again, I lost my train of thought.
Sorry. I was going to go to
Yeah.
my chat and have one person saying, good morning. It's called Yipi Chin.
Oh, okay, so
I
that's
said that
from your
right.
side. All right, yeah, I mean, who knows? But yeah, welcome everyone. Welcome everyone. Welcome to Dave calling in or typing in from Australia.
Good day, mate.
But yeah, good day. Yeah. So yeah, let's keep it going. So yeah, there are definitely positives and negatives, right? So when I guess the thing that comes to my mind is what are these like positive and negatives? Like how are these different in different cities? Because you lived in China for 3 years in Beijing specifically, but you traveled around. Did you notice different positives and different negatives about different cities?
Yeah, mostly I was looking at the like positives, because like those are the first things you'd notice is what's different, right? I've noticed like when I went to Suzhou, it was a lot more laid back, a little bit quieter,
Okay.
spaced up, not as crowded. I've heard the same thing about Chengdu, because I have a friend there too. He said it's pretty laid back.
Chengdu's super laid back. Yeah. It's Chengdu's a place they said don't go to Chengdu when you're young because you'll never leave. Because like if you're young, you'll just be laid back and chill, and you'll just stay there forever. Yeah, it's a famous saying about the place. Yeah, it's pretty chill.
Yeah. Oh, sorry, I forgot the question. It was a positive and negative about other countries?
Yeah, about
other
different
cities?
different cities. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd say like even from Beijing to Tianjin, like immediately, as soon as I arrived there, I get people asking me to take pictures and stuff like that, where it wouldn't even happen in Beijing unless I was like in a
Oh, really?
like
Huh.
imperial garden or something like that. But I had it more
Okay.
like when I would go there. Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I do notice that when I go to like tourist attractions. Yeah, that's kind of the main places
Hmm.
that happens.
You try to
Or
avoid
if you
that in
go
your own
out,
town.
right? Yeah, I mean, I never go to like the Quanjai alleyways. I don't go to the Panda Base. I don't go
Hmm.
to the Tianfu Square, which is that square in the middle of Chengdu. I don't go to those places, so I
Hmm.
avoid it. But like it happens when you go to like little villages. Like every time I go to a village, like there's
Hmm.
someone like taking photos of me or wants to take a photo with me.
Hmm.
Mhm.
They sometimes tend to forget that you're with a family. You're not interested. For me, I'm just like, no,
Right.
sorry, I gotta follow my life.
Right. Yeah. I mean,
But
when I go traveling, I'm usually alone or I'm with another friend. And my wife's not a big fan of traveling, not to the
oh,
places I like to go anyway. So
okay.
yeah. So yeah, let's. So what for you? I'm just trying to think here. Like, there's so many like aspects that we can talk about in terms of like the
Hmm.
diversity of the China experience. So like in terms of we did talk a little bit about the people that you would see on the street, like the different minorities and
Hmm.
things like that. And that does also kind of affect language. Like language
Oh,
changes throughout all of China.
yeah, the way people would speak too, and like I would notice people in Shanghai were really loud.
Really, I wouldn't. I didn't. I never thought about that. So yeah, like, do you have any specific anecdotes? I'm curious.
I I I don't know, but I think also the culture there is a little bit different. Well, from what I've been told as well, is like men down there do a lot of the cooking, but I think Chinese men in general do that anyways. But I heard that a lot of the men, mainly down around Shanghai area, do more of the cooking at home.
Okay, yeah,
Yeah, so stuff. I mean, that's what I've learned. I don't know if that's completely true or what. So.
well, right, yeah. I mean, and that's a good thing about this conversation is we keep saying like at least in this part of China, or like I don't know if this
Hmm.
is totally true, or yeah. I mean, it's good. But yeah, in Sichuan, I've noticed that like most places that I've been around Sichuan, it's been like the wife will like cook kind of on the days when the husband's not working, or when the husband is working, and
Hmm.
maybe he comes home from work and doesn't have time to do it. But like I've noticed on like special occasions, or when there's like a holiday, something like this, like the guys cook. I've
Hmm.
noticed it in a lot of cities in Sichuan. So I mean, I think that's fair to say around here.
Hmm. Well, I got a friend in Chengdu, and he didn't really cook much before the pandemic, but since he's had to stay home,
Hmm.
he's been like sending me pictures of all the dishes he's cooking. He's like, I haven't
Sure.
like it seems like he's been cooking his whole life, but I don't know if it's like in the blood or something. But
Hmm.
he said he doesn't really cook much, and it just looks like he just
Hmm.
cooks like a professional to me
Oh,
compared to
sure.
my cooking.
Right. Yeah, I mean it's cool. Okay, I see a couple of comments I do want to address, but I was thinking about this. I want to share a couple of things that I've found here. Let's see. Here we go. Like I want to share a couple of things because I was just thinking about diversity. So I was looking at like maps and things like that, like how things are different in different parts of China, like especially because you're talking about the way that people speak to you, right? Like how people are loud and like also, yeah, Mandarin's all around China, but there's so many of these like local languages. It's insane, especially in the South. Did you ever notice anything like that in the South when you were traveling around? Oh, we lost him.
And now we have a
Nope,
map.
he's back. Okay, yeah.
There we go. I turned off my computer. Hopefully that helps.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So anyway, I was saying, like, if you look in the south of China, you notice a huge amount of like different dialects. Like, did you have a lot of, did you have any experiences with those like dialects?
Oh, hearing like the differences. I wouldn't say my ear's that in tune to like hear any differences, but I could hear like it just sounds like another language to me.
Yes, yes.
Especially
Like
when
that's
I was like in, I could hear that like when I was in Yunnan, there's the Nashi people, and they did this big performance
right.
there. And so yeah, it was like just like being in another country.
So if you're talking about the Nashi people, that's right here in this southwest corner. So we're getting around the border with I guess Vietnam is where that is. So yeah, I've been down to that area as well, and yeah, it sounds like Vietnamese. The local people, like, it doesn't, like, I would occasionally hear, like, I would hear like something that sounds like Vietnamese to me, and then occasional like Mandarin sounding words, like. It was really, really weird. Like, you hear ba 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 Zhongguo, ba 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 Difang, ba 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 ba, like it was very, yeah, it was odd.
It was almost like
And
in English when we threw in some French words.
Right, yeah. And I've noticed that in China, this like divide between the north and the south, like up in like northern China, things are very, it's much easier to communicate in Mandarin, whereas in the south, things can take a turn. Yes. Yeah. And yeah, for example, yeah, like this. Even this simplifies everything. Because every city even will have a different dialect.
Yeah.
You know, it's
village.
crazy. Every village, that's right. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so it's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. The kinds of things that you'll run into.
Well, I could share like my first impressions. Like you said, first impressions of other cities. I would say my first impressions of, I guess, Beijing was my first impressions of China. So that really affects how I view a lot of things, and maybe I'm more biased about certain things and more biased about Beijing than other cities, right?
Right.
So even my first impressions prior to going to China was that it's a very conservative country. People are pretty modest. They dress really modest. And when I arrived, I've noticed, people dress really well. It's Beijing, so I can't compare with other places. So that place, I've noticed, wow, people dress really nice, very clean and neat, and it's just a good impression.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. My first kind of impressions were in Beijing as well, because I spent a couple of days in Beijing before going to Lanzhou, like just traveling around and just like, wow, this place is big. Everything's going so fast. Everyone is dressing this way. Like, it's such a crazy modern place. And then I head over to Lanzhou, and like Trevor James put it the best. So, like, I don't know if you know him. He's like the food ranger.
Yep.
He
He's another.
He was telling me. Yeah, he's a Vancouver boy. He was telling me about landing in Lanzhou because the airport's 75 kilometers away from the city. It's so far, and it's in the middle of the desert. And he said, like, I landed in Lanzhou, and it was like I had just landed on the moon, because it was just desert, just like hills and like craters and weird little valleys, and like there was nothing out there. And that was sort of one of my first impressions of northwestern China, was just like this like being on the moon.
So
Just this vast
it's like
desert.
landing in Saskatchewan in Canada.
I have a buddy from Saskatchewan. Yeah, that's what he said, something similar.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's funny. Yeah, and then you get into the cities, and it's super like dusty, and it's very dry around, but like you have the Yellow River going through it. There's a lot of mountains, and like you learn to find beauty in the desert, which is something I never appreciated before. Yeah, it's cool. Like and you will never have that experience if you're, living in Beijing. It's a totally different. And I spent 3 years there, 3.5 years there, something like that. Really affected me.
Of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like if you were to compare like going to Canada, a lot of the bigger cities, I guess the largest are Vancouver and Toronto, Montreal. But in general, like your lifestyle is pretty much the same across the whole country. But I've heard like even Toronto itself is like its own country. Like people think so different.
Yeah.
It's the biggest city. It's like the New York City or the Beijing of Canada. So people think within their bubble of their city, really.
Right.
So
yeah, and actually, so you've just brought up something interesting, like bubble in their city, but that I kind of even within a city, people living in different areas have completely different experiences.
Oh yeah.
Like someone who might live in northern Chengdu. Like northern Chengdu is the older part of Chengdu. It's super traditional, super old school. A lot more like street vendors. There's a lot more like alleyways and kind of sketchy looking parts.
Just not as developed.
Right, yeah, it's just not as developed. Whereas, like, if you move down south, to an area like Yulin or even where I live, it's a lot newer, it's a lot more developed, a lot more convenient. And then you go further down, you have the high-tech zone, which is full of office buildings and, like, big, high, super modern. It's just like any other city around the world. Not much different. But like even within a city, like these different areas, offer different experiences. Like, did you notice that in Beijing?
Yeah, I would say so. Like even in my own city here, it's the same thing. I mean, depending where you grow up, you're going to have a different experience. That's another thing I'd make a point about is that where you grow up or where you live, depending in the city or your financial circumstances, you're going to have a different experience than anybody else, right?
Right.
So like that's another thing. Like, even people posting things online telling about their experiences, like you don't really know their background. Maybe they might share about it, but I mean they don't really. They're not going to have the same experience that you have. So
right. Yeah. Huh. Yeah, and that's true. And then your job. And like your job back home versus your job in China and how much you can make and your standard of living and things you can afford, like that'll really affect things as well. Like
I've had a service job where I've been to all kinds of houses all over the city. So I've seen people from all kinds of walks of life. So I mean, it's nice to hear their experience and like what they think about certain things. It's different across the board and everything. I find that fascinating.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's excuse me. Here, keep the people entertained while I get this.
Are you still? Yeah, you still have your bronchitis.
Yeah, it's been a couple of weeks. I'm almost over it now. But yeah, so we've covered things like the language. We've covered things like the people that we see on the street, and we've said a little bit about attitudes, like where people are super laid back in one place or another place, and we just touched on for a second, like cost of living and salary and things like that. So, what about your experience in Beijing in terms of like the job that you had and your costs and things like that? Like, what was your experience there like in terms of that?
I'd say, well, jobs, yeah, can always change your experience. I mean,
Hmm.
training centers compared to kindergartens or like doing your own thing, you meet different kind of people, especially at a training center. You're going to meet people from all kinds of different professions and get different perspectives. Whereas
Mm.
if you're maybe working at a kindergarten, you're working with kids, you're not really talking to anybody else but little kids. Um, you, yeah, you don't seem to. You kind of get stuck in a bubble, I guess, and you feel like you're not really learning too much about the city itself.
Hmm.
Maybe like unless you have like colleagues working in the same school. Like when I worked at that school, I was the only teacher basically.
Ooh.
Hmm.
Ooh.
People come and go, like 3 or 4 teachers, and like none of them would stay.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay. That kind of freaks me out. Why didn't they stay?
Well, there was one of them stayed for a while, but yeah, I don't know because it really had to do with the kind of person. Like some of them were just messing around, there was those kinds of
Mm.
foreigners, and then there was some that were just like too professional for the job. One
Mm.
guy showed up in a suit.
Okay. Yeah, that's
And like,
something that doesn't happen often here.
yeah, I saw that once and I thought it was funny. But anyways, that could be for another chat.
Yeah, that would be one of those like China stories
Mm-hmm.
live streams.
But
That'd be
obviously
good.
here for diversity, yeah, I did work, like when I worked at a training center, there's people from Canada, there's people from Philippines, all kinds
Hmm.
of people.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I think that's something that is it's a surprising thing about China. Actually, you are going to have like if you are the sort of person who wants to have expat friends. Because geez, there's too many things to think. Because the thing about this is like you could be one of the people who says I don't want any expat friends, and that will really change your experience in China. And I was like that for while I was living in Lanzhou and Tianjin, especially. I was that kind of person. It's like I don't want to associate with expats. And as I've taken more and more expats into my circle of friends in Chengdu, and I've got friends from all over the world in a way that I didn't have
Yeah,
in
was there a
the
reason for that?
USA.
You just didn't, you wanted to have like a whole China experience, or what was it?
Yeah, that was definitely part of it. Like I remember being in Lanzhou and it's so cringy. I remember being that guy who was like, I'm living in like the real China. Like this is what China's really like. I was that guy. Like I was like, I don't want to associate with foreigners. I want to
Hmm.
learn Chinese and speak Chinese only, and this and that. And like I was that guy. And I mean, that is a reality of some people in China. Some
Hmm.
foreigners in China, they want to be that way.
Whereas then there's the other ones, you can tell when they're tourists, when their eyes are glowing when they see you walking down the street, or on the other side
Yeah.
of the street, oh, and you try to avert your eyes.
Mm, yeah.
So I've done that myself.
Yeah. Yeah, there we go. Chengdu, best city in China. See, yeah, that's
Yeah, I'm going to
in
definitely visit whenever the borders open.
yeah. So this is an interesting point. I mean, China's more international than the USA. It's a different
It's
sort
different
of.
international.
Yeah, I mean, do we want to explore this? I haven't really thought about it in that way before.
Hmm. We may be
Like,
able to do another video on that.
yeah, that would be a whole different sort of thing.
Yeah.
Like I would say in terms of like, I would really, oh, I would I would really disagree with this in terms of like numbers. If you look at the numbers of foreign nationals in China versus like native Chinese, it's completely like
Yeah.
there's no question. Like in
I
China,
think
there's about
okay, well, maybe what they mean is like if you were to look at like a city like Beijing or Shanghai, those are the real international cities. Like you got all the
right.
shopping and
Hmm.
fast food and all kinds of restaurants. You can try out the
Hmm.
food from all around the world.
Hmm.
And then you have like businesses there from all around the world, right? And Tesla's even
Right.
there now.
Right. Yeah. Tesla's
So
just outside of Shanghai. Yeah.
it'd be international in that kind of way.
Yeah. I think. Yeah. It's certainly very very visible here. It's certainly very visible in big cities, and that's another thing is that like foreigners are usually in the big cities. They're not in these small towns that don't. Like there's that guy Jason from Living in China. He's always talking about deep China, deep China, deep China, which is well, I mean now his content's different, but he used to always be talking about deep China, like these places in China that don't have McDonald's and Starbucks and KFC and like
Yeah.
Western food and
The
English
real
speakers and
experience.
this and that. Yeah, it's like this is deep China, and that's most of China, right? That's most of
Yeah.
China. But yeah, it's interesting.
What's this?
Let's see. So yeah, I don't think you should do ancient town videos anymore. You should focus on. Well, I mean, yeah, that's certainly like something to focus on in one way. I think there's pros and cons to doing every sort of experience. Ancient towns are just my personal interest.
Exactly. Like that's your experience and that's what you like, right? Whereas I
Right.
see I think for me it's too much of the high tech stuff where like one YouTuber does it and then it's kind of like a bandwagon.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, because like, YouTube is all about like keeping the conversation going, right? And like whichever one gets the most engagement, or if somebody's responding to this person and this person does this, like it gets more people on the site, and then it gets the algorithm going and this and that. Whereas like something that's kind of more just a one-time kind of video doesn't necessarily do that. So yeah, there we go.
Personal
So,
interest.
yeah, personal interest. Yeah, so personal interest will go away. Okay, sorry.
Go away,
Yeah.
people.
So, yeah, personal interest will really affect your experience here and will diversify things. So, like, what sort of things did you like to do in your free time when you were here in China?
I like traveling. I like eating.
In traveling? Mm.
hmm
Mm.
I'd say I'd gain more weight there because I'd like to eat, go out and eat.
Yeah,
And for me, like
absolutely.
even traveling anywhere in the world, I love the traditional stuff, like the old buildings and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
So I like to find
Right.
out that stuff and like go outside the city. Even doing some adventure stuff, like going rafting and stuff like that.
Oh, cool. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's pretty cool.
I got to do that once and it was fun. I actually never did it in Canada, but I did it in China.
Right. Okay. Huh. That's funny. Yeah, I've never done that here in China. That'd be something I'm definitely interested in. So yeah, you were talking about architecture. That reminded me of this sort of thing. Here, let me do. So there is diversity in the architecture. The stuff you'll see every day is super different, right? Depending on where you are.
Oh yeah, even in the like within the city, like in Beijing, for example, you can go to the Hutongs. That's my favorite place.
Right.
Is the lake there with the paddle boats and stuff like that. The old little alleyways you can walk in. And it's like it's
Right.
one of the favorite places to go because it's like it's old China, I guess, but even sometimes fake
Yeah.
old, but it's still fun. And you see those things popping up in other
Right.
cities, like the fake old
Yeah.
stuff.
Right, absolutely. Like Shanghai's got some of it. Like I don't know about Shenzhen. I've never been to Shenzhen, but like you'll have these these big high-rise cities, and then you'll also have like the more kind of traditional architecture, sort of like this, the historical sort of stuff.
I wanted to make a point here. I think this is a church, like an ancient.
What?
Yeah? Is it? Do you know what this is?
I'm not actually sure. I was just pulling up a few random like bits of architecture. Like you have like this village actually just recently burned down. It was one of this place called the Wa people who were in Yunnan, which is what you were talking about earlier, being so diverse. And like you have people living in these kinds of places, like underground, like this kind of cave courtyard sort of thing, which is in Hebei.
Oh, okay.
Province.
I was going to say it's a courtyard, but then I can see the buildings up above there.
Yeah. So yeah, you have this sort of thing, and this is like there's quite a few people who live in these sorts of things, but it's regional as well. Or you might go to somewhere else up more towards the northwest that's like this. And like I've actually spent time, like I spent a few days out in the countryside in Gansu, and I was in one of these like cave homes carved into the side of the mountain, and people do live like this. And the inside's a lot nicer than you think. Actually, it's a lot nicer than it looks on the outside.
Yeah. Actually,
it's pretty cool. And then you have like you were saying, different architecture, old style, kind of like this, right? Mm-hmm. Like you'll see, like in the top, in the like the
roofs.
Continue. Yeah.
I'll cover you as you're recovering there. So like the rooftops, I've noticed the differences that when you went down into like areas like Suzhou or Shanghai, I have to mention these two because they're quite similar. Is that the roof tips have this like little sharp point at the end of them. Whereas in the north, it's not so much like that. It's more of like the traditional just swoop. Like I don't know if you know what I'm talking about. If you had a picture of the roof,
I think I do. Yeah. Here, let me see if I can put it back up. There we go. So, yeah. I'd say in Sichuan, it's more like the ones on the left side, especially the four on the left. Mm-hmm. The wood, metal, water elements. Like those I see more here. Mm. Yeah. Okay. There you go. Yeah, absolutely. Let's see. And yeah, so architecture is a big thing because this is what everyone thinks is China, right?
Yeah.
Everyone
so
says
this
China.
Is what I'm talking about. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, this is the automatic assumption. They see this, and it is very characteristic of China, but it's not the only thing out there, right? So you have ones that are a little bit different, like this. This is a minaret at a mosque, and then so you've got different
where they
sorts
start
of
going up now.
Yeah. That's what you're talking about. Okay. Yeah, and this sort of thing. I think this is in Jiangsu as well. So you can see like the colors are different. Mm-hmm. The materials are a little bit different. Whereas this, everything is made of wood, just about. This is in Sichuan. It's quite cool seeing the diversity around this country. See, this one has more of the rounded tops right there. You can see that rounded point.
And I think this has a lot to do with it, even just the different climates around this country. Like the geography really makes a difference of your experience as well.
Yeah. So here, let's talk about that, the geography. Okay. Let's see. Let me remove that. Okay. Yeah, the geography. The geography in different places will really affect, like in Lanzhou, the geography affected the air quality because there was a bowl of mountains just like this all around the city, and it trapped a lot of that city smog. And it couldn't get out. It couldn't be blown out of the city, and that that really affected me. And then what about? Excuse me. What about Beijing? Like, tell us about the geography of Beijing and how that played a part in certain aspects of life.
So similarly to where I live right now, we're really close to the mountains. The mountains are about an hour drive away. So in
Mm-hmm.
Beijing, they're a little bit closer just because the city is a lot more spread out than.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but anyways, like you're just talking about the smog. So for the
Right.
same thing, and I think Tianjin has the same problem because they're closer to the ocean. But I don't know how it affects like the wind and stuff. But like a lot of the smog goes into that city.
Right.
Whereas it's the same thing here, whereas we're near the mountains, and there's this town next to Calgary. So Calgary's like a
Mhm.
larger city of 2 million. There's a smaller town near it that's in a valley. So sometimes
Mhm.
if there's no wind at all, the smog will just go and just sit in that little town.
That's unfortunate.
Not that there's a lot of smog because you don't
Yeah.
notice it because there's so much wind here, but like when
Right.
it dies down, then it just like kind of settles down there.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
That sucks. Yeah. And some places that are at higher elevations
Mm-hmm.
will certainly not have that problem because it just all goes
Mm-hmm.
away. Depends on wind patterns and all sorts of
Mm-hmm.
stuff. And I don't know about Beijing. You can tell me about this or not, but I remember like Tianjin being so close to the ocean. It
Mm-hmm.
was so windy. It was
Oh,
so windy all the time. I couldn't stand it. Yeah, because I one of the things I love to do, personal interest, I love to play frisbee. You can't
mm-hmm.
play frisbee in
Can't fly a
Tianjin.
kite.
Can't well, you can fly a kite. That's the best hobby in Tianjin, but you can't throw a
Oh,
frisbee because you'll lose it forever. Like, so yeah, that was fine. I mean, I don't know what the wind is like in Beijing. I
I
didn't
think
spend a
I
lot of
didn't.
time.
Yeah, I think I didn't really notice it because of all the tall buildings, right?
Right.
So
Okay. Yeah,
I
that's
think
true.
it is actually quite windy because you'd even get like dust storms sometimes.
Yes. Yeah, that was a
Mm-hmm.
big thing that happened
Mm-hmm.
every now and then in Lanzhou. Yeah, dust storms. So someone's popped in and said, the
About
Baozi boss. I like this. The Xi'an is so dry. Yeah, the
mm-hmm.
climate. Yeah, the climate in Lanzhou is my favorite because it's super dry. I love that.
Hmm.
Here, not so much.
I thought it'd be more humid down there, but yeah, people say Beijing is dry.
Mm. Yeah, I personally loved Lanzhou's like dry, high desert climate. That was
Mm.
really great, actually. But it made things. But being in the high desert made the winter really bleak because all
Mm-hmm.
the trees are kind of dead for the winter. There's no color. There's nothing. It's horrible to look at. And I remember going to Xi'an for the first time in April, I think. And I went to April. I went to Xi'an, and I saw like green trees, and I saw flowers, and I saw this and that, and just poof, like it was like the cartoon when the flowers come out at the beginning of spring,
Oh yeah,
and
going
it
from a
just
black and
lifted
white
my
movie
spirits.
to color.
Yeah, you can watch some of my old
Technicolor.
videos in Lanzhou. You can watch some of my old videos in Lanzhou, and it looks like the videos in black and white almost, like filming in like January.
Yeah.
It's crazy. But I remember going to Xi'an and just seeing colors and just like that psychological kind of trigger got set off, and I was like, I was so happy just to see a little color, you know?
Yeah. Well, that's like another thing. Like when going to Yunnan, I was like, it was very similar to Alberta, like the landscape with the mountains and stuff, and like the big blue skies and stuff like that. But it was so green.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Yunnan is awesome. I love that.
Yeah.
So yeah, what do you think about Guangzhou?
I've been there once.
What do you think about it?
I can't really remember too much, just the lake.
Okay, sure. Yeah, yeah. Guangzhou's it's not my personal favorite city because the food in Guangzhou is not really for me. It's super light, slightly sweet kind of food. And I prefer kind of heavier, spicy, kind of like lots of different, like big, bold flavors. And I don't know, the vibe down there didn't feel
Oh, sorry, I was thinking
too.
Guangzhou.
Yeah, the the vibe didn't feel too good to me.
Mm.
It felt really weird. I didn't quite like the local vibe.
Mm.
So yeah, that was my impression of Guangzhou anyway. But there's a Chinese vlogger who lives in Guangzhou. I forget his name, but he loves it down there. So well, great.
Depends where you come from, I guess.
Depends where you come from. Depends on your personal interest. Depends on
Exactly.
everything. Yeah, and I don't know. So like, I don't know where we could. I mean, there's so many different things we can talk about.
Yeah.
It's hard to nail anything down. Is there anything that maybe we haven't mentioned, or is there anything like that's in your mind that really sticks out?
From my experience, I haven't had like those places where I went where like I really don't like it.
Mm.
But from all the places I've been to, I still enjoy Beijing. And I could
Mm.
see certain places where I could be like, yeah, I could see myself retiring there, like when I'm older. At this moment, I
Mm.
not right now, right, kind of thing. Whereas like in
Right.
Yunnan, I could see myself as an old guy in a little old house. Like,
Sure.
right?
Sure.
So
Just
like
out.
you do have your choices around China. You can have like the
Mm-hmm.
Shenzhen, exciting like techie city kind of thing for young people,
Right.
which you can get in Beijing as well. I mean, it's
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
Yeah, that's an interesting point. The about yeah, your goal. What are you looking for? What type of experience are you looking to have? Is another thing.
Another thing I want to point out is also your experience, if you have kids or not, right?
Ooh, okay. Did you go to China with kids?
I came out of China with kids. With kids.
Okay. All right. Well, yeah. Tell me about all that. Yeah, having a child in Beijing. Yeah. I mean, I don't even know where to start.
Well, yeah, the thing is, she was born there, so she's had also her own experience as a kid, mostly growing
Right.
up in Canada, so it's not remembering too much as like when she was just 1 year old when we moved. So even that experience is so different, and just seeing her go through her own experience and how she feels about China and what she feels about like Canada, for example. And
Mhm.
she's the kind of kid, she's very easy to travel with and she's very easy to adapt. So
Okay.
like that's another thing is my experience of like raising kids um, here and like going back and forth, like traveling all the time. And yeah, so everybody can have their own kind of like experience in that way. Whereas someone maybe like Alex Absolute, you know him.
Mm-hmm.
He
Oh
raised,
yeah.
yeah, he's raised his kids there, so he has a totally different perspective that I do too,
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
as well as his
and
kids.
so I know of some people who have moved out of China specifically because they have had kids. Um, Was that something that do you identify with that at all, or did you move out of China for a different reason?
Yeah, kind of that reason, as well as I was feeling stagnant. I
Mm.
was feeling like I need to have like a plan B. I wanted to get
Okay.
educate. Yeah, like I want to get another education, where I can like
Mm.
do this in China, I could do this in Canada, kind of thing. As well as we were thinking about
Right.
raising kids there, but our perspective really changed. Because at
Yeah.
first we're thinking, oh yeah, I want the kind of like lifestyle for my kid that I had,
Mm.
but yeah, that kind of perspective kind of changed
Yeah. And that's an
based on my
interesting thing.
experience.
Yeah, yeah. The the thing is, yeah, as you spend like as the years add up in China, the experiences add up. You have time, like especially if you've spent a long time in China, you're able to like reflect on an experience you had maybe 3 years ago, in your case, because you were at the end of your time in China, and you could reflect at some distance from those experiences first being in China, and you're still there, and you still,
Also, it was my age as well. That's another thing that affects everything. Is that your age, your like you said, financial situation, if you're married or not, you have kids, like what's happening. Like we left because it's like I was thinking, okay, I'm gonna have a kid. I've never had a kid before. I know it's like to like grow up in my own country, and I thought maybe that would have been better because I really didn't understand how it was in China for a kid. And my perspective, from my limited perspective, I thought maybe it would be better in Canada, for instance. But now that I look at it, it's not really where your kid is raised. It's just how you raise your kid.
Right. Yeah, and I think you're right. As you get older, the things that you want change. The things that you're looking for change, and then you kind of realize maybe this particular city in China can provide that, and this city cannot. This place can, and you have to move around because that was my thing from moving Lanzhou, Tianjin, Chengdu, because my wants changed, my requirements changed.
That was one big growing experience for me is having this shift where it's like I came back here. I through the years just wasn't interested in the same things. I mean, that has to do with becoming a parent as well, but also from my experience living abroad and now looking at my own country and in a different perspective, from like a fresh perspective, I would say. Yeah, so like perspectives really change how you feel and how you experience everything. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the things that I'm looking for now, and like it's been 10 years. I've spent a third of my life in China. I mean, you're gonna change every year. You know, everyone's changing all the time. Like I'm a completely different person than I was a decade ago. And it does affect how I view China, and the ways that I've talked about China have sort of evolved over the years. And there's a common thread in that, like, I have a good life here, but how I feel about certain issues and how I process certain experiences, that's changed.
Yeah, it's like for me, like now I see myself having a better life there. Right? Just based on certain interests that I have now.
Yeah. Let's see. And so this is a comment that I think is really, it's a thoughtful comment. Can foreigners avoid being stagnant in China? Yeah, it's a tough thing, I think, because again, it goes back to what you're looking at, what you're looking for when you first arrive, and how things change. So I think you can speak to this especially because that's how you felt. So can you unpack it a little bit?
I was feeling stagnant, but now I'm feeling stagnant here, especially because of the pandemic. But that's not really a reason that I want to actually move back. We are thinking about that because we just look at the things, what we want to do, what the things we want to do in life, and we are capable of doing them if we move there. If we stay here, it's like we can't really do the things that we want to do. Whereas through the years, we've kind of figured this out. Like, this is what we want to do. As we're getting older, we're figuring out about, like, we have to think about parents and taking care of them, retirement. So we got to set our path, I guess. So yeah. And I would say just foreigners can avoid being stagnant in China. So, I mean, it all depends on what you're doing.
I would say if you're a
Phone's gonna die
teacher,
soon here.
uh-oh,
It just
probably,
gave me the 10% warning.
okay. Is there a way you could plug it in? Okay. So here, you figure that out. But I do think you can avoid it. So if you're teaching, for example, there are ways that you can move up. You can get different teaching certifications and qualifications. You can, get your, TESOL, your TEFL, your CELTA. You can get this. I know lots of people who are currently doing their masters right now. They're doing their masters as they're teaching at a university or while they're teaching at a high school. So they're getting their masters, hopefully getting a pay bump, getting more education, and then moving into different industries, or going maybe from, for you might want to start at a training school and then move up to a university, and then, maybe to an international high school or something like this. And if you're working at either a training school or an international school, there are ways you can move up. So international school, you can be a teacher, then you can become like a head teacher, you can become like an admin, you can get into human resources, you can get into that, you can work your way up. And the same thing is true in like training schools. Oh, we've lost him. The same thing is true in training schools. You can work your way up into, let's say, head teacher, foreign teacher manager. You can, he's back. You can get into curriculum design. There's so many things you can do. I think feeling stagnant can be due to your friends around you. If friends don't push you to do something better, then
yeah. That's like one thing is like I have to give props to my wife is because she's been really the one who's motivated me. Because if you're a kind of person who's, I don't know, a little bit introverted like I am, I do need a little bit of a boost or encouragement. So my wife's taught me how to do that, like for myself. So
okay,
that's my better half, right? That's why they're called your better half.
That's exactly why they're called your better half. Yes. Yeah.
Here, I'm just going to switch to my computer here. I'm just going to switch to my computer here.
Okay. Here, let's see. Okay, we'll do that while you get that sorted. Yeah, my wife's been very helpful in a way as well in pushing me to let's see here. If you're going to be on here, there we go. Okay. There we go. So she's been good about helping me have the right priorities, because sometimes I tend to think about this thing when I should be thinking about this thing, and I'm angry about this thing where I shouldn't be because this. Okay, it's wives are great. Wives are great. Yeah. I've lost your. Oh wait, there you are. Okay. So yeah, here. Why don't you take this question? Actually, whoa, dude, your audio is so messed up. I don't know what is going on. Okay, so we'll figure that out in a bit. Figure that out in a second. Okay. So while he gets that figured out, I'm gonna stall for time. Right? I'm gonna stall for time while he gets that figured out. Because that was funny. That was funny. Okay, so he's out, and any questions? Yeah, we'll talk about these sorts of questions. Yeah, we've touched on a lot of stuff in this stream. There's a lot of things that have been brought up. Some great points. Now, for me, if this question was put to me, I would rather put my kid in an international school of some kind, because, and I guess if I was working at an international school, I would also put my kid in that same school, because then they can go to that school for free, which is nice. But I would put them in the international school because it would just be easier, I think, to deal with the paperwork and, accreditations and stuff like that. Because international schools, he's back. International schools have things like the IB curriculum, or they teach the AP curriculum, or they teach GCSE, and they do all these things that can transfer if and when you move out of the country. Whereas if you go to a Chinese public school, it would be harder to deal with all that, I think.
It's like okay, I can hear myself. As long as I hear that's like another thing is about experiences. Like why we left is because I thought maybe I didn't want my daughter to have this experience that I've heard of, but I didn't know at that time all of the options she had. Being born in China, and I didn't really do enough research, right? But through the years, I've done research. My wife's done research. We've talked to people, their experience with raising mixed kids. And, I just recently had a conversation on my channel with some other parents, including Alex, and sharing their experience. So it was really motivating. So it's really helped encourage us to actually try it out and try to go back to China and try to see how it goes. Well, that's another thing, is just not to just jump ship and just sell our house kind of thing, but just to see what the experience will be for our daughter if it works out. So
yeah. That's definitely, man, and even me being in China for so long, I tend to forget how certain aspects of China are changing, and that there are certain aspects of life that I am still totally ignorant on.
Of course.
Like you were talking about having your kid and talking to Alex and, being really encouraged because you didn't know some stuff.
Right, and there's still a lot I'm going to have to learn, right?
Right, yeah, and I've recently learned things about teaching. Like, I told you about, I was talking about international schools and the way you could work. I've only just really learned about this in the past few months. Like, I never really gave international schools much thought. Like maybe even in the last year, I didn't even know. I had no idea what those international schools were paying. Good Lord.
They're expensive.
Like, I had no idea how much money you can make as a teacher, much less how much money you pay for it as a student. Like,
exactly.
I had no idea. These places it's so much money.
Well, I look at how much they're asking for per student per semester. Yeah. I'm just like, how much do they pay the teachers?
Yeah. It's crazy. Yeah. Like, I know the amount. Like, I'm going to be moving to an international school if I get my way anyway. I'm going to be teaching at an international school next year because I'll be able to teach like IB and AP and stuff like that. And plus, the money's crazy. I had no idea. I wrote off international schools. But, and the fact that you can get your teaching license here in China, like you can get your American teaching license or Canadian teaching license from. I didn't know that. I wish someone had told me that.
I think if you're working at a Canadian school, for example, the one in Beijing is like the best international school is the Canadian International. It's in that Chaoyang district, and I mean it's the most expensive. But I could imagine if you wanted to, you could probably get a teaching certificate through there. I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, it works,
yeah, and some international schools will pay, like they will pay for that certification program for you after you've been there a few years.
Yeah.
It's here, there you go. Bam. international school in my hometown, annual tuition is about that much. You know, that's a lot of money, Jack. That's a lot of money, Jack. Yeah. So, and then the other thing is, yeah, in terms of experiences in China, your experience, like your friends and like how well they are off financially. Because I've had friends who like owned bars and like nightclubs, and then I've had friends who were in real estate, and then I've had friends who were in like the fast fashion world, and I'm like, and the difference in income between them and me, like I've got no business being friends with these people, you know, or and like seeing the way that these people like live and the way that they treat me and the way that they treat other people, that really affected kind of my mindset in terms of like wealthy people here.
Are you talking about like the expat community?
No, I'm talking about local Chinese people.
Yeah,
but also, also expats. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Ask away. Yeah.
Like from your experience, I like using this. We can use this in a whole video. From your experience, do you like you mentioned, like people from different financial backgrounds, they treat you the same. And like you said, you feel like you shouldn't even be friends with people like that. Is that just because of your experience from back in the US? Are people just seem to not look at that in Chengdu?
Well, the thing is, like, I'm talking about people in all the cities that I've lived in. I've had these wealthy friends in Lanzhou and in Chengdu and in Tianjin. And I think, because of my background and the people that I was always associated with, I'm super middle class. Like, I'm just middle class, like small town kind of thing. And then, like, I've got these friends who are definitely, like, upper class in China. Well, and I think part of it, it depends where you are. So in Lanzhou was probably where I had the wealthiest friends, because like as a foreigner, you automatically stand out. You're something different, something special. And to some people, I felt like I was just like I was just a token foreign friend. And to some people, I felt like I was really close to. And like people will use you in different ways, you know, or they're not using you at all. They genuinely want to be your friend. Just it all depends, you know. Nothing's for certain, you know. It is a weird thing being friends with people you have no business being friends with. Like, it's pretty much just because you're an expat, and that kind of, at least, you know, for a while anyway, that gave you an extra kind of little bit of social standing, where maybe not so much anymore. Expats have been kind of normalized, at least around the big international cities anyway.
Well, that's like another thing is like when you do meet people like that, you have something to learn from them. You have something to gain. So I mean, it does to like people like you said, like it doesn't matter to them if you are maybe lower status, but maybe you're trying to seek the same thing, or you're trying to learn something from them. I guess you know what, they would respect that. You frozen. How's this? Bell's the boss. Yeah. It might, I don't know, maybe it's the thing that maybe because you're a foreigner, maybe like this is another thing the China experience. This is the China experience from my perspective as a foreigner. And I'll just continue talking here until he unfreezes. Also other experiences as me as not just a foreigner, but maybe like a white foreigner. Also being treated differently just because of what I look like. So, I mean, all kinds of different experiences from different people. Foreigner in China versus Chinese in China. Yeah, I would say that. Even for like the Chinese born in the US, the ABCs, their experience is a lot different. Maybe similar, but still they get the...
Okay, we're back.
different experience as well, because I've heard people go to the restaurant and like they look Chinese, but why don't they understand Chinese? What's wrong with them?
Yeah, so I missed a bit of that context. We were talking about ABCs.
Yeah, I was just saying like how my experience and your experience, because we're both white foreigners, we do have a different experience than others.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, and Boutsa Boss just left a comment to that effect. Yeah. Yeah, that's
Maybe treated differently. Maybe.
yeah.
I mean, that's anywhere.
Yeah, and also like as a foreigner, yeah, like you just said, your level of Chinese, I would argue, plays the biggest single role along with your job. Like those two things, I think, are the two biggest driving factors for your experience in China.
Yeah. Like your wife's Chinese, I'm guessing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So same as for me. So if you're maybe a foreigner, like your Chinese is a lot better than mine. I'm still beginners. So the way I learn a lot of things is through my wife. And if maybe you're a foreigner at the same basic level as me, who isn't married or doesn't really communicate with someone Chinese, then you would learn things with a different perspective, right? And you might not have like a deeper, whatever they say, deeper knowledge of certain things. You would look at things differently and have come away with a totally different experience, right? Just based on not understanding cultural things.
Right. Yeah. Like, okay. So I have so many friends here in Chengdu who don't speak Chinese, and a lot of them tend to be fairly unhappy when it comes to the local people. They say like, oh, I was at this place and then this Chinese guy started yelling at me and then like this happened and then like, this person did this and I was talking to him and then, and it's like, and they say things like, and I don't really speak Chinese and, this, I'm like, well, yeah, it's because you don't speak Chinese. You don't know what they may have been angry about. You don't know if they were just politely asking you to do something. But because we live in Sichuan, everything sounds aggressive. But like you just don't know. And also things like, how about paying a phone bill? How about getting an internet connection? How about renting an apartment? How about getting a phone call from a local in Chinese? How about going to the supermarket? Your life is going to be much more challenging without Chinese. It's going to affect you a lot. Yeah.
Oh, I forgot. I was listening to it, then I had an idea, and my brain just.
Yeah.
Okay.
And getting around town also. Like, if you don't know Chinese, how are you going to ride the bus or really take a taxi if you can't tell someone where you want to go? Or say, no, take a left here, or take a right here, or 右拐,左拐,直走, these things.
Yeah, those are the very first things I learned. Taxi,
right,
lingo.
Yeah. Right. Bei, Nan, Shi, Dong, like you got to know the different directions. And then, like if you don't know this stuff, it's so hard to get your life together, man.
If you don't even have like the gumption to like learn, I mean, I was only there for 3 years, probably could have learned more, but if I was there for 10 years, I would definitely be at a better level than I am now. I mean, I guess I'm procrastinating, but I would say in China, I have the environment to push me to do it, right? Whereas here, I don't have to, not for my job, not to get around, not to pay bills or anything like that. But once you're there, I mean, you should learn to do those things yourself.
Right.
So learn the language in order to do them.
Right. Yeah. It's I just think if let's see. Yeah. Well, I mean, you at least got this one. 你的中文不好，哈哈哈哈. So, but yeah, so yeah, and if you're, if you don't have like that basic survival Chinese, man, life is such a challenge. Because I've talked to so many people who just don't even know their way around Chengdu because they're afraid to venture out.
Why are they there?
Because what if they get lost? Yeah, why are you here? You know?
Even I don't speak the language, I'm not afraid to go out and just
yeah. Like, dude, you've got GPS on your phone, and then this is what he said. Yeah, but the GPS is in Chinese. I can't figure out where I'm at.
Get it.
Yeah, like, but your address. And it's like, yeah, I've got my address somewhere in my phone. I'm not sure. Like, it's so frustrating.
That's just an unorganized person.
Yeah, I think so. So, yeah, I kind of think so. Whereas, like, someone who speaks at least a modicum of Chinese can go through that daily life interaction. Like, I do not find China to be a challenge anymore. It's not like there's nothing special. If I get a phone call, I can answer it. I can talk to the person. If I'm on Chinese social media, I don't have a problem reading. If I'm on like this person left a comment, me being on TV, that wasn't really an issue. I mean, that's been a very long time ago. My Chinese has improved so much since then. But
one point I wanted to say is like your perspective isn't always like influencing on your level of Chinese. Like from my experience, I have this perspective where like I do understand I'm in another country. If I see something that's a little different from where I come from, I try to understand where that comes from before making any judgments.
Right.
Like certain habits, like people have for certain generations, and I can understand what, like because of history and stuff like that, what they've gone through, like the lost generation, as they're called.
Right.
And just let it go. Like some people just have a problem and just saying like these are all negative things and therefore bad. I don't know. I don't know where I was going with that.
Well, yeah. So yeah, this is an interesting thing.
Yeah, I started to read that.
Yeah, unhappy non-Chinese. But well, this was even before. This was even before COVID. I've noticed this across my entire Chinese experience and my experience in China. Like I remember even my very first semester teaching in Lanzhou, there's this guy named Raymond who just had so many issues with like the local staff and with his students and with this and with that. And I remember talking to him about it and talking to students about it, talking to other teachers about it. And these conflicts came from him not being able to understand where they were coming from culturally, as well as in terms of the language. Because at that uni in Lanzhou, some of the English teachers didn't speak great English. And our department, the English department head didn't speak English. And it being a super traditional city affected him in a really negative way. And I've seen that happen in Tianjin with a couple of guys, and then I've seen it happen here. So this is way before the pandemic. Just the challenge becomes too much for a lot of people.
Well, in contrast, I could use marriage as an example, especially if you have such a big distance in culture. That's what's affected a lot of my perspectives over the years as being more comfortable about China. I mean, I was fine. I've always been comfortable with China, but then there's a lot of things culturally that were not really understood, or maybe I just didn't let myself understand them, right? Whereas over time, it's just like in a marriage, you try to understand the person. Like you may have a lot of conflict because you're just not trying to understand the other person. So in a way like that, like
Yeah.
I think it has some parallels there, or it's pretty much the same. It's like what you were talking about. Like he's not really trying to understand. He's trying to, like he only understands it through his own perspective, and he's not thinking in their shoes, maybe, or trying to, or I don't know what happened there. Like you said,
there's a lack of empathy. Yeah, and
a lack
sympathy.
of empathy. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I do think that is a big problem with some people here, especially when you meet those missionary types. Oh boy, it's rough. It's so rough.
Yeah, I mean, I even understand that. Even like I'm a Christian, I understand like certain missionaries, they go to a place and they think they're gonna like use their method of evangelism to this culture, like use their own culture, like their own way that they do it in their country, to try to apply it in another country. Why isn't it working? Well, because you got to understand the people first. You got to get to know them, build relationships, maybe learn the language. The same thing, like what we were talking about before. Like if you want to understand more and have a better experience, it's good to get to know the culture, learn the language, have more empathy, understanding. Yeah.
Patience. Patience. Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, there's a whole, like, I even did a video about that, like it was called like 5 essential qualities for people who want to live abroad, something like that. Yeah, and it's exactly what we've just been talking about. But yeah, it's man, yeah, I could talk all day about this. This is such an interesting topic to me.
I don't even want to sound like I have all the answers. Like, oh yeah, this is the way you do it. This is how you adapt. I mean, like the whole topic is like everyone's experience is different. So I'd like to just tell the audience, if this is their first time watching some Chinese YouTubers, lately there's been a lot of tit and tat against certain YouTubers just because of their experiences and their perspectives, and some of them drive their perspectives a bit too politically. And
right.
I think, yeah, it's good to step back and kind of think things through. I don't know, like I don't like to go there with the politics and stuff like that.
Right.
There's no such thing as real China.
Yeah, and I people want to talk politics, that's fine. I don't care. Just the thing is, and I think we could probably wrap it up about right here, is just that there is no such thing as the real China. Every city, every province, every like different level of income, every job, every thing that we've talked about, the language and the interests, the goals, the stage of life, the age, everything is related, and everything produces a different experience. So like, don't listen to anybody who says they'll show you the real China, because that's their perspective.
That's more honest if they could say, I'll show you it through my perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what my channel has been about. And my channel is,
somebody's gonna be like, that's not China to me.
yeah, I had that issue with at the very beginning, when I first started doing YouTube in 2011, 2012, was watching Winston's videos about Shenzhen, and I remember always leaving like comments like, that's not what it's like for me here. Like, it's a different country. It's I'm living in essentially a different country. Shenzhen, Lanzhou, tropical city, desert city, at the forefront of technology and thought, way in the past in some regards. Super traditional. It's like,
you're in a different world, man.
Yeah.
Some people try to show it that way.
Yeah. So, but yeah, so that's why my channel is mostly just about Chengdu. Like, it's like this is what you see in Chengdu. I feel like that's fair, And plus, I feel like if I can own the Chengdu YouTube sphere, that would be great.
You'll be the guy.
I'll be the guy. There are a couple of others, but it would be fun. It's good for my view count and watch time.
Yeah.
But I don't want to own it. It just sounds like a fun idea because people will have different experiences in Chengdu. Like,
Well, see, that's what I hope to do once
Yeah.
the borders can open up for me in the future, that I can show people through my eye
yeah,
and kind of get
absolutely.
the feeling through my eye. That's just what a lot of creators try to do, is they try to express what they're seeing to the viewers so they can get the same feeling. That's it's kind of like what I want to do.
And so when you're talking about like maybe coming back, is there a place that you would want to go? Like, is there a region that you would want to focus on? Like,
Chengdu.
or you'd want to come to Chengdu?
I do,
All right.
because I have a friend there who I haven't seen in over 10 years, and we were supposed to have a reunion last year, but it didn't happen. So even besides that, like, Chengdu seems very, very fascinating.
Okay.
Yeah.
Huh. So how long has this person been in? I'm really curious to see if I know this person. That would be really funny.
Chongqing before that, but I think, yeah, he's been there for quite a while now.
Okay. Okay. Well, we'll talk about it off camera maybe. But yeah. Is there any kind of last thing? I think it's probably time to wrap up. Is there any last thing that you wanna tell the people?
Yeah, don't always look at I guess those people who say this is the real China, blah, 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 because there's always going to be someone else to say, no, that's not it. That's not it. What's this?
Yeah.
My
So,
experience
yeah,
was
I mean,
so
that's-
positive. Yeah, that's another thing, is because a lot of people, some people get some slack because all they show is positive, but there's nothing wrong with that. And basically, I look at a lot of things in a positive light.
Yeah, that's just who you are as a person. Me too.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, there you go. I feel good about leaving it here.
Good.
So yeah, it's a good time. So here, let's link your channel real quick. Let's see. So the Lilley Pad, Austin in China. We're doing good things over here. You know, check both of us out. out. I don't know who's watching who, but you know, things are good. So do you have any future plans? What are you doing on your channel next?
On my channel, so yeah, I just took some time off because stuff's getting really busy now. So. But yeah, I'm gonna continue maybe just doing stuff like this here once in a while. But for content, I don't know what's going on with my computer and my phone, but I tried to make a new video recently, but it just wasn't happening. I think it's just an iPhone. I'm new to iPhone, so I'm trying to figure stuff out. Yeah.
Okay.
Life's
So
just
sort of
a
a transitional phase.
yeah,
kind of thing.
live stream seems to be the easier thing to do, but I like these. I like to do
so
these
much easier.
conversations.
Yeah, so much easier. All right, so Jonathan's just subscribed. Jonathan's good people, man. All of you out there are good people. Thank you all very much for watching, and we will see you all, when we see you. Check everyone out. Everything's here. Thank you very much again, and goodbye.
Yeah, thanks for sticking around. Bye-bye.